So I just got the message that we are now live at the live stream. So welcome everyone to our discussion about the power of local ecosystems. We are three today, and with me are Arianna Nicoletti and Reiner. And I'm Afra Gloria Müller. And first of all, I want you to introduce to ourselves. After that, we will do a first round telling you what we understand under local ecosystem and what part it plays in our daily work life. Then we want to talk about the challenges of building and holding together a local ecosystem, and what are our experiences, how does it work best, and we want to also talk about failures. For example, here we look into the question, how do you identify the right stakeholders and partners, and what can be challenging about it? And we want to close the talk with the question or a discussion about what is the role of the individual within the local ecosystem, before Leon then in the end will round our talk a little bit, sum it up. So who are we? First of all, I want to introduce you to Arianna Nicoletti. She's a pioneer in Berlin's sustainable fashion scene. She is, in Berlin based, and she is an entrepreneur and practitioner working within the fields of sustainable fashion. And she focuses on, within her work, on circular systems for textiles. She is the co-founder and CEO of the Green Fashion Tours, as well as the Circular Textiles lead at the NGO Circular Berlin. Furthermore, she works as a consultant for the Indonesian-based agency Closed Loop Fashion, and she works as a freelance auditor for sustainable textile standards. Leon Reiner, he is the founder and managing director of the Impact Hub Berlin, and his core responsibilities are the business development area and partnerships. He previously worked as a consultancy in the area of social entrepreneurship and managed an incubator for social startups before. Leon supports the Impact Hub in his hometown Munich as a board member, and he is also a founding member of the Social Entrepreneurship Network Germany, short SEND, which I'm working at currently. I'm Afra Gloria Müller, and I'm the regional manager of our network for social entrepreneurship here based in Berlin. And I'm responsible for the local project Social Economy Berlin that tries to foster the social economy and its actors, and to help them to have even a better and greater impact here in Berlin. Before that, I worked as a consultant in the areas of change management and agile management, and I managed one of the biggest crowdfundings within Europe to organize a democratic festival, which never took place because of COVID. And I'm also an activist. So now let's start with our discussion about the power of local ecosystems. Leon, may you want to start telling us what you understand under a local ecosystem?
Sure. Hey, everyone. Nice to see you on this Sunday. Great that you're listening. Thanks for the kind introduction, Afra. Great to see you, Arianna. So what's an ecosystem? This is actually a question that as Impact Hub in Berlin, but also globally, we've been asking ourselves for quite some time. So there's 100 Impact Hubs globally, and being an innovation and an entrepreneurship support center, ecosystem has always been a term that is quite central for us, because what we basically understand as an ecosystem in our local work is a set of activities, stakeholders, and various actors that are basically centered around a specific topic and have different roles in making, I'm going to say, really generally things happen. And in our context, that's usually ideas, startups. And to make things, ideas, startups happen, what you need is this really diverse ecosystem of actors. So the state, ministries, larger corporations to partner with, experts, mentors. So it's really all these people and organizations that can provide the assets that are needed to successfully execute on an idea, be it money, be it knowledge, or be it just visibility. So all these things that Cent basically identifies for social entrepreneurs that are lacking, an ecosystem of people and organizations is able to provide. But to really make that happen, what it needs to basically come to life are formats, activities, events. So all these things that enable people and organizations to help specific ideas. So for us, an ecosystem is always a combination of the right stakeholders, the right ideas, and the right formats and activities around a specific core topic. And we've even went to the point where now with our new location that's coming up in Berlin, we try to formalize this. And we're now actively trying to build these kinds of supportive ecosystems around specific challenges, like, for example, circular economy. Arianna, how's that for you? I mean, you guys at Circular Berlin, specifically circular economy, have thought about this topic of ecosystems a lot. And I know you've done some really great work.
Yeah, thank you very much. And hi, Leon, and hi, Afra. Thank you for the nice intro as well from my side. And hi, everyone. So yes, I'm representing today Circular Berlin. So Circular Berlin is a non-profit in Berlin. We are trying very hard to implement more circular systems in the work and in the city itself. And definitely, I think the circular economy ecosystem in this city is the basis of all our work. So we actually started before funding Circular Berlin with a mapping in 2018 of all the actors, all the locations, and all the interconnections that make up this network in Berlin. And so, yes, ecosystem is extremely important. And also it is, for us, the aspect of making this visible, which it is quite a challenging part, but also I would say part of our work itself, because we think that the network, this ecosystem, should be tangible to make it strong, to make it visible also on other levels, also on the governmental levels, for example. But also we want organizations, companies, people to see each other's and connect, so that they are pushed to connect to each other's and start maybe new projects and synergies. And so, yes, also I think the ecosystem is the basis for every next project that we did from really like the funding of our organization. And one example of this is with the very recently launched project, the platform Again Guide. So for the Again Guide, in order to make a mapping of the whole textile recovery supply chain in Berlin, so the whole like repairing shops, upcycling stores and tailors and so on, we really started from our ecosystem, and we used this ecosystem, these actors within it, as multiplicators to find others. And yes, so definitely I think the knowledge of the ecosystem and interaction with it is very vital for our activities. Yeah. How is it for you, Afra?
Thank you, Arianna. Yeah, for us at Cent, we are representing I would say the local ecosystem for all the social entrepreneurships here in Germany, but we also have then specifically regional local ecosystems because sometimes, the resources, if you have them locally gathered together, it's better because, like everywhere are different conditions, and you have different partnerships at the federal or state level. And yeah, we see ourselves as the representatives of social entrepreneurships in Germany and building bridges with those, for example, governments to create a better infrastructure for our own local ecosystems. And as Leon also said, like for me, it's also really important that the local ecosystem has a shared common vision, like what they want to reach and work towards it together. And for us, it's creating a better impact for the society, but also transform the economy, right, to a more social and sustainable way of making an impact. And for me, it's really as well about the creating synergies, using the resources within, but also outside of your local ecosystem, and to support each other to realize your common objectives within the local ecosystem. Yeah, let's talk about how do we do it? Like, what are your experiences? What works good building and managing a local ecosystem, or what might be sometimes a little bit challenging? Leon, maybe you start, because I mean you are just at the moment expanding your ecosystem, or let's say create a bigger physical space for your local ecosystems.
Sure. So maybe what Afra is referring to at Impact Hub Berlin, we're currently building a new location in Berlin-Neukölln with 3,500 square meters of maker spaces, co-working, and offices, all for social and impact entrepreneurs. That being then the largest impact hub and one of the largest kind of centers for these topics in Europe. And we've been doing this as Impact Hub for 15 years, as Impact Hub Berlin for 8. And we really last year, kind of during COVID, looked back and thought, what has really worked well and for us, it's always, ecosystem is just, it's this connection, but for us, it's a supportive ecosystem. And as Afra said, around a specific purpose. And we thought, this was and has been for us in the past impact entrepreneurship. But looking forward, we realized that to stay relevant for this growing scene, specifically in Berlin, but also in Germany and Europe, we needed to concentrate more on specific topics, because the scene had become so big and is still growing so quickly that, to manage and hold an ecosystem together, we needed to kind of compile and go deeper on specific topics. So we looked back and thought, what are these kind of topics that we want to kind of host in the new space, in the new house? But also, how do we host them? So we're concentrating now on 4 topics, being circular economy, green tech, diversity and inclusion, and sustainable food. And then we really looked back in the past 8 years and thought, okay, these are the purposes, that the topics that Afra referred to. We know all the stakeholders, but how do we bring them together? What are those activities? What's that method that actually helps us, unveil an ecosystem and continuously build it? And we really looked back and looked what worked. And through kind of the past year, developed an actual method that we call the impact ecosystem approach, very thoughtful, and really came up with a specific set of activities that is set to bring together the right stakeholders so that they may work together, because ultimately that's our core belief, that collaboration is one of the key drivers for successful innovation. So activities that bring them together, infrastructure to host them, space and digital infrastructure to host them. And then really kind of this common purpose of that we're all about kind of, for example, in the circular economy space, creating and supporting new innovative approaches and helping them succeed, specifically through collaboration. And really looking at what worked and what didn't kind of helped us come up with this approach. And its kind of key components are really, first, the understanding part, actually trying to look deep and make a kind of a report about kind of what is currently happening in this topical area, who are the main stakeholders, then bringing them together in a community and really actively managing that community, helping people to connect, be inspired, attract new people in. And then thirdly, obviously, to really enable them, and with things like an accelerator, with matching event formats, things like that, to really help them come together, trying to set up a little fund for being able to kind of provide some monetary value to people, like money for people to execute on these things. And then having these 3 steps of inspiring, understanding, connecting the right people and hosting a community. And then thirdly, empowering and enabling them to work together to successfully innovate. So I think that's what we're really trying to do. And the hardest thing, as in many cases, and Arianna and Afra will know that, is, well, who do you get to pay for all of this? And that's kind of currently what we're looking at. We're talking to a lot of CSR departments, a lot of innovation departments, because a lot of the large corporates, but also a lot of the mid-sized SMEs in Germany really have very big sustainability agendas, but they really don't, like, they want the right thing, but they don't really know yet how to get there. And working together with innovators and startups can really, really help them. So these are the people that we're currently looking at, and also people in specific ministries who've understood that supporting innovation sometimes doesn't mean funding one specific innovation, but it might mean helping an ecosystem, an infrastructure for innovation to stay there. So that's kind of what also I specifically am currently doing, really, really trying to kind of find the right partners to be able to execute on this approach in the next year and developing it further. Arianna, I know that you guys have been looking at a little bit different approach with the Again guide, which is really, really cool because it's very visible. And you've kind of also said that visibility is one of the key things that you've identified for a successful ecosystem.
Yes, well, we kind of have, I think, the same kind of challenges that Impact Hub has. For example, looking at systemic challenges such as how do we finance our work as an NGO. We cannot actually have a business model made built up on for-profit models, but we can, of course, attract the right partner who want to align with our goals on the long term, and we can, of course, get in finances like money and fundings through spenden, so offer donations, and through organizational membership. But this is really challenging, to find the right organization that are not only using us as greenwashing marketing for them, or just for a small project and then just carrying on with their usual activities. It's a try and error phase, for which I do not have an answer now how to do it. We are out there only since 2 years, but we have a very rich and yes, I would say there is also the power of the ecosystem, since each actor talk with their own networks and try to include them, to make them closer to our ecosystem. And I think step by step we see with the time the right people are getting closer to the core of this ecosystem. And so also understanding really what is our work and which direction we want to move, and aligning with us. But also I think on a smaller maybe level, building up the Again guide, we had one of the biggest challenges was for us to reach out to these actors. We used to work with people and organizations that are totally digitalized, that write emails, but we had to reach out to small tailoring atelier. In many cases, they didn't even speak the language. So we started from the thought of, okay, we just write emails to everyone. They will be very happy to be part of this project. They will just write back. And now we ended up in sending physical letters with flyers in 6 different languages inside. So I think a take there, something that we learned, is really to scan this network before starting the work and try to be as inclusive as possible. This is also a topic you have at Impact Hub now, inclusivity and diversity, just to try to, from the beginning of us, to be as inclusive as possible, really looking at possible cultural and language barriers. So that's a big learning for us, for sure. I don't know, Afra, do you have a very homogeneous kind of partners, or is this also for you sometimes difficult to you have to calibrate the communication?
It's really, we have so many different kind of partnerships or stakeholders. be it from municipalities, the government, be it private companies, be it in NGOs. I mean, social entrepreneurship is not focused on one sector, right? We work in all the different sectors, so it's really diverse. And I found it really interesting because currently I'm hearing myself almost daily saying, okay, we need a better mapping of the resources, of the organizations, of the people, of the key partners within our and around our ecosystem. Because it also, like, if we Ascend, we try, we represent the social entrepreneurships, and we are still sometimes missing exact numbers to also show what huge impact our sector or our ecosystem and the organizations behind it might have on society, right? And the mapping is something I think I want to get better in Berlin at right now. And but at the same time, I think, and it is related to that, what is also really, really important is keeping everyone on the same page. Transparency and communication within your network, but also outside from it. And so for me, that is like community management, for example, and communication management. Like, how do you connect the right people, and what spaces do you need to create that, first of all, the people within feel safe, but also that they get to the point where they really connect and get a strong bond. Like Leon, you said it, collaboration is key within a local ecosystem, right? And this is something we're still every time trying to improve and try new things. For example, we call it the scent villages, like meetings for different, around different topics, so that we bring the people who are interested in the topic together. And that's something that we do. For example, Leon, you want to add something?
Yes, two things. One, maybe I can really relate to what Afra said, and I think that's a really, really good point around making the ecosystem tangible. There has been a lot of research done, also in the US, looking at these kind of great clusters in Boston or the Valley, where you see that, they call it ecosystem intermediary organizations, like we all are. We're not the organizations creating products or services directly, but basically trying to facilitate an ecosystem. And they made really big efforts to kind of actually measure the value that's created by an ecosystem like that, concluding that an organization that turns over about $1 million a year can facilitate a 2 billion ecosystem. So it's really interesting to read, but doing something like this is quite challenging. But it kind of shows the idea of kind of someone bringing together an ecosystem can really create value, but making it tangible is very hard. So that's one thing I wanted to relate to. And then there was a question in the chat, actually, that I wanted to bring up, which is from Gudrun. And she asked, Gudrun Mernitz asked, what specific kind of tools are we using to connect different stakeholders? And maybe my kind of first reaction to that. So I think the first thing that was also something that Arianna, me and Afra referred to is create value from the beginning. So this is not a concrete tool. You can create value in different ways. And my experience is always that a combination of off and online works really well. So starting with an offline event, so people get to know each other really face to face, and being regular about it. Because, if you become this kind of monthly fixture where people can, depend on coming to meet others, I think that really helps. So that is a tool, a really, really regular, in-person thing. It can be a Stammtisch, but it can also be like a bigger kind of event, depending on what you can do. And then having like an online kind of tool, and there's many things you can use, anything from LinkedIn to email lists to Slack to WhatsApp to Signal to whatever you like, really. Some kind of place where you can bring together these people that you have in your ecosystem, and continuously communicate, because that's, I think, the core. So as a really basic, that's what works for us. And then obviously there's a lot of kind of shades of gray to this and a lot of things to learn, but on a very basic level. Tool often refers to like something very specific. I don't think that there's like one super great tool. I think it's really about how you make use of it. And that just means, ultimately, it means investing a lot of time and work, really. How's that for you guys?
I can totally connect to what you said, Leon, and also to what you said, Afra. I think one of the big aspects here is really collaboration, but also how do you keep the ecosystem alive and vibrant, and now how you make it. Now you keep on making it so interesting that new people want to come in, but also the one that are already inside want to stay and keep on, contribute to this. And I think on the tool side, so that's a challenge, of course. I think also it's a big challenge that, since Corona, we are mostly only digital, and we are kind of a little overwhelmed by all these digital possibilities that we have, from a digital event to different Slack channels in which we are in, and so on. So that's something that makes, at the beginning maybe of the Corona time, beginning of 2020, we actually realized that a lot of people were more active online, but at the same time, by the time people got so tired of this, of all these communication channels, new apps to be used, that sometimes it's very difficult to reach them. And of course, we are talking with companies, organizations, entrepreneurs. Now also here, the audience today, they know that such a little time left in a day, of a working day of an entrepreneur, of a manager in an organization, that it is also there like a difficulty for us to engage these people in fruitful conversations and connections, looking at the short time they have. And yes, so that said, I would say that the tools that we use, on one side for the mapping, we use the Kumu map. I can just link it in a second. It's KUMU. That's a tool that is a visualization tool, but is also like making it easy for us, like to automatize this process, because the businesses and the people and the projects, they can just register themselves directly from the website, and then we do a little validation only, and then the information are directly put online. So this makes very easy for us to make this ecosystem grow on a visual way. On the other side, we use for communication mostly Slack. So we have Slack channels for the core members that are more active, and standard Slack channels for all community members or organizational members that they want just to support us but are not directly active in our projects. And Slack itself alone is a lot of work, of course, to manage this. And I really think that we have to create new, instead of community managers, maybe also really ecosystem managers that are able not only to react to what happens on Slack, but also think ahead and have a overview and think what could be really relevant for this network, and what could these actors do together, even if they have no plans in any direction, but not already like thinking about possible synergies. So yes. I don't know, Afra, you?
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. It's so important, like, who are your community managers or ecosystem managers? You know, you need people who are really, really motivated to network all day and all night long, and, you know, have the feeling of which people to connect to each other. And they need, to have the skill to understand the perspective of others, try to understand what are the current challenges of the people you're interacting with, and connect them with other people who might have the same challenges or might have even the solution for it. And so the people within your team who are managing the network, I think they need to have a really strong intrinsic motivation to keep the community together and even let it more grow. Yeah, and for us, it's the same. We work with a Slack channel, but also, have this huge events which are specifically only for our members, but also for outside participants. And here we differentiate a little bit to make sure that we have those safe spaces, but also invite others to see what our work is. And especially inviting people from other organizations, from the classic private sector, for example, can be really important, because you need to have this transfer work, and also get inspiration from outside. I mean, Leon, I think you mentioned it earlier, that a local ecosystem or ecosystem in general is dependent on its diversity. And I think here it's really, really important that you have, of course, a strong inner bound, but you're also open to the outside. What is happening outside? What are the conditions? What can you learn from others, from other ecosystems? Maybe is there even a chance to connect ecosystems to one bigger one? And
that's a really good bridge, because I think the third topic that we really wanted to think about is kind of what sometimes doesn't work, because ultimately I can say, I mean, I've been in this work for 10 years now, and like with startups, or even more so, I think most ecosystems or communities, they start off high, then they kind of plateau, and then they're done. And as a listener, you might remember kind of meetup times, right? There's a meetup, it starts, there's a lot of people, it's super great, and then after the third or fourth one, it kind of becomes, the speakers become a little bit, not so great anymore. And then maybe, people then are not so excited anymore, going to their sports practice might be more important. And then ultimately it kind of recedes, and something else comes up. So you always have kind of this I don't know, hype cycle, or I don't know how to call it, but I would say that is actually what happens to 98% of starting communities / ecosystems. So oftentimes I think what we strongly underestimate is this balance that Afra and Arianna also just alluded to, of inclusivity. It's really, really challenging, because on the one side, to create value means kind of being really, really diligent about who you invite in, because there is this core purpose, and people who are in need to be on board with this core purpose, and they need to be interested in kind of collectively creating value. Because if they're not, so if they only take out, that can really put a lot of strain on an ecosystem. And if they really are just a little bit aside and have a little bit of a different purpose, that also creates a great strain, because then you always have like topics that go away from each other. And this becomes really, really challenging, specifically in the space that we're in, sustainability, all the topics that you've heard, because the expectation set that we put towards ourselves around being inclusive, being inviting, being open is really, really high. But this balance between being open and just being, in Germany would say beliebig, like just letting everyone join and do whatever they want, is really, really, tight, because sometimes as someone facilitating an ecosystem, like someone facilitating a workshop, sometimes you just need to say, that's not okay. Or if it's like that, you can't come back. And these are really, really the moments that are very, very critical, and that can make an ecosystem, grow fall. It's often moments of conflict in a way. And that's really, really tough, because, usually a community ecosystem starts with an energy of, as every new idea, with a very positive energy, everything is always up, 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 become more people, everyone sees a little bit of themselves in this topic, and then coming to a point where it's about maintaining and slow growth, and really finding out who's actually invested, who wants to be there long term, and who is really ready to create not only value for themselves, but for everyone else. I think that's a phase that's super difficult to manage. There's very little research about it. There's very little, I would say, like proven method. We already had this question about tools, proven methods that work for this. So I think that's something that I think Arianna, me, and Afra know from our jobs, is something that we really think about a lot, because if you want to create something that creates long-term value, how do you get over that hump of like really, really having an ecosystem that becomes more and more, self-maintaining? How do you empower people and organizations in that ecosystem, make a contribution, so that we as kind of ecosystem facilitators are not the ones constantly needing to create value, but it becomes a place where people start to actively create value for each other. So I think that's this shift. In the beginning, it's a central person that does everything, a central organization, and then this shift to something where people and organizations create value for each other in a more kind of dynamic way, that's not so central. I think that's a very challenging shift, and it's really a small percentage of ecosystems that make that jump. So I think that's something that often can go wrong.
Do you have any tips to protect or make your local ecosystem more resilient?
I think something that you referred to is really important. I think constantly keeping people on the same page about why you are here together. What is the goal that you're going for? I mean, with Send, it's really clear, right? You want to influence politics so that framework conditions for social entrepreneurs can get better and social entrepreneurs can become more successful. And just constantly keeping people on the same page and reminding them, this is something that, we help you with, but ultimately you're doing it. So that you're not like you constantly have to pull yourself out of this kind of service role, or really, really concentrate on specific points where you provide a specific service, and the rest of the time just keeping on reminding people, which can be a little like tiring, and it's not the most thankful job of like always writing, like, as Arianna said, like writing 20 emails, putting a letter, putting 6 different languages, things in it, and you feel like, hey, I'm doing something great for you, and I seem to have to carry you, to it. What's happening? So I think it's really finding out how, like, this constant reminding of, hey, this is something where you all get, and really being diligent about finding out where you really create value for everyone in their everyday life. Like, hey, remember, through us, you've met these 3 people in the past year that have had amazing impact on your business. Don't forget that. And if you want to continue to meet these important people, you need to also give back. So reminding people about that, which sometimes can be a little bit of a painful job, but oftentimes it's also reminding people. And then if you're lucky, they're like, yeah, that's right. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'll do this and that. I'll be there. So it's a bit this kind of keeping the wheel spinning, and that's sometimes a bit hard work.
Yeah, and resiliency or resilience is very connected to motivation, I think. And this is the motivation of the people that are in the ecosystem, of course, is very important, but also the motivation, of the people like doing the organizational work behind, and for this, like to motivate these people to keep on doing. Running this ecosystem. I think it is really important, this topic of giving. I want to give an example of another completely different ecosystem I'm in. Is called Climate Voyagers, and is like a global group of mainly climate tech investors and companies. And the keyword there is give. It's not a platform to get something. Of course, you can ask, definitely, but the basis of everything is to give as much as you can. So it is really like, it's amazing. No? You have all these like top level companies in it, and all these funds and VCs investing millions on these companies. And sometimes you get a question like, oh, do you need like does somebody need like a UX designer for this? And you get a lot of answers in there because people really engage, or something like, even we are this company, we need a seed A level investor. Can you make connection for us? And all these investors saying, okay, yeah, I'm writing to you an email. And it's such an active group. And you really see like all these people are there to give because they accepted from the beginning on to be in this ecosystem that is based on that. And that's fantastic. It's also like, I guess all companies that, they're really value driven. So this part of the value, what the community is giving you and as value, but also like what are the goals of these communities, extremely important. Like, I think in all our 3 projects on organization, we have this very strongly in our DNA, like to say, okay, our vision is a better economy, is a not different society, but also like different industry somehow. And we have to make very visible the work we do and disseminate this as much as possible, because only like that, I think we can really attract the right partners. So dissemination also for me, very important part. Yeah.
Thank you, Arianna. Here's also another question from Gudrun Manitz. She asks, what is about the competition between the helping hands and the acquisition of project money or finances? And doesn't it counteract with the transparency, or isn't it a general issue within the social entrepreneurship sector? I would say, yes, we still have a problem with funding and finances because, there are not too many programs and projects that are suitable for social entrepreneurships. But my experience is that, everyone is happy if somebody else gets a funding and makes it into their next round, and it's rather a supportive atmosphere within the social entrepreneurship scene. And on the other side, I'm really proud because the social entrepreneurships are so creative and come up with solutions like crowdfundings, where they find a way to get the funding and be not anymore so dependent on fundings from or loans from the banks. So I wouldn't say that it is an atmosphere of competition within the social entrepreneurship. There's no question about it that there is not yet the best infrastructure for growth. Yeah. What do the others say?
Also, like we work a lot with project acquisition actually to finance our activities, and definitely I think there you really see, you always have one winner for one competition, but still there's so much collaboration and like communication with different networks, like trying to make as many people as possible to really apply for these kind of projects and fundings. And I think this is very important. It makes the network like really collaborative net, where you are kind of, you feel free, like also to talk about financing possibilities, but also because later someone else could help you out with something else. So it's a really I would say different sector. At the same time, through my company Green Fashion Tour, so I have to distinguish a little bit between the NGO work and company work. I'm very active since more than 10 years in this sustainable fashion sector, and I saw big changes. So I see now competition getting in there as well. I saw so many businesses starting up and then growing on a global level and being now at the point where they do not want to engage with smaller satellite companies because they could become competitors. And I think I don't like this. Personally, I feel like, oh my God, they lost so much of their core values with which they started at the beginning. And like that, we just keep on working in this in this framework of our linear economy and of like how our society is built up and our economies are built up. So I think for a change in this, we have to keep in mind, even as social entrepreneurs, even if we reach like a level where competition could be kind of dangerous for us, like to keep on being open, because we are still too less companies. We need to grow these ecosystems. We are not helping out the change and the transformation if we act this way. And so again, this topic of transparency is very important, and the topic of communicating how fragile a business is again very, very, very important. Like just write on LinkedIn, like, what is your, as an entrepreneur, as a sustainable entrepreneur, or a social entrepreneur or not, like, what is this, in German you say it's Zwiespalt, I don't know in English, like this conflict you have interiorly, like about helping out another small companies or giving out data. I think that's helping, even if you're not doing it because as a business you are scared of losing clients or losing a part of the market. Then still, it is important to talk about these topics more in the public and help others, entrepreneurs, maybe take another path.
Yeah, maybe just two last points. I think in the place. So the question was referring specifically to social entrepreneurship. I think right now it's really about growing the cake. So as we always say, I mean, there is not like it's growing, but it can be growing even faster. So rather than concentrating all on the same pots of money, really thinking creatively about, new partners and being also a little bit tough about that, because I mean, I've been there and done that, and you get called for working with this or that corporate because it's not super correct. But at the same time, it means kind of bringing new people in. So that is also like working with a controversial company on a great project can bring in new money, but it can also create a lot of friction. I mean, in circular economy, imagine working with, I don't know, like a large plastics producer, I don't know, like Nestle or Coca-Cola who use tons of plastic and want to improve, but at the same time, is it then okay to work with them? So I think these questions often come up. And the other thing is really consortia. I think specifically, and Afra and me, I think with Send and Impact Hub, but also Arianna, we all do work together on different projects. I mean, Arianna comes visiting our new house with her tours. Afra calls up Impact Hub when there's a new kind of call for supporting social entrepreneurs, but Send doesn't want to do it. And they call up and say, hey guys, there's something that we'd love to do together. Can't we come together? So this kind of thinking of like how to you actually can concentrate on your strengths and then come together in a consortium. And I think specifically, for example, with the V versus Virus hackathon last year, that was something where we had 8 organizations plus tens and almost hundreds of partners. You can really show how that works in the same. So maybe for the last point, because last 10 minutes are coming in, I think one thing that we really wanted to talk about also is, what's the role of the individual? Because I mean, ultimately, an ecosystem is a collection of people, and I think that's always a question that we ask ourselves as people, as persons who are part of many ecosystems. But I'm assuming also all of you, listening and watching this talk are wondering, ecosystem, great. Maybe you want to build one. Maybe you are in some that are not working well. Maybe you're in others that work really well. So what's your role in an ecosystem? And maybe to start off with, I think ultimately it's for me, it's 2 things. So one, being, and I think that's what Arianna said at Impact Hub, we call it, in a pay forward mindset. So not being transactional of like, I give something, I get something back, but like keep on giving and it will come back. It's this kind of like karma point system of just, and I think having this mindset is really one of the key things that make an ecosystem successful. And I think all ecosystems that I am part of that are successful, really, really cultivate that kind of mindset. So as Arianna called it before, it's this give mentality. At Impact Hub, we call it the pay forward mentality. So I think that is one key thing, like really embracing that and also like giving it to other people that you're in an ecosystem with. So it doesn't always have to be the perceived facilitator, but I think that's the second point I want to make. Really, really understand that in an ecosystem, even though someone might start it, ultimately, if it wants to become something that's long-term successful, everyone's a facilitator. Everyone is called upon to take the lead, and if you feel there is something that's missing, be vocal about it, take a lead. And leadership is something that really, really is situational. There's not one leader or one lead organization, but different situations and different topics call for different different kinds of leaders to take them forward. And an ecosystem can only work if there's lots of leaders who take responsibility and accountability for the success of the ecosystem, and not just one person or central institution. And again, that's also to do with the central institution or central person, because it also doesn't really work well with big egos that want to do everything themselves. So I think these are the two things that I see. If you want to find out, personally, what's your role, it's always pay forward and take responsibility and leadership for the things that you care about in that ecosystem. And then I think everyone wins.
Yeah, maybe I take over here. Yes, definitely everything what Leon just said. Also, I think people can be multiplicators, so they can work as they can help out to extend the network, to communicate about the network, to influence in a positive way other people just through talking about what they hear within the ecosystem. And that's something that individuals should not underestimate, like how important it is that they talk about these topics and they talk about their ecosystem all the time, because they're the best multiplicators. But also in our case, of course, we need individuals to take action, to start new projects, to connect us, and also maybe support existing projects. And not everyone has this time and this want to take this role and responsibility within the organization. That's totally normal. And in this case, of course, we always try to motivate the individuals in our community to just engage into in Slack mostly, really with small actions, really engage, read what we post there, write comments, link people if you have someone in mind of our members that could be interested in this. This is such a small action. Maybe now it's 5 minutes a day just to read through one channel, but it makes so much, because really it helps us to keep the community vibrant, to keep it up to date, to connect people just very organically. So yeah, that's from our side.
Thank you, Arianna. Yeah, both of you said already so wonderful and important things. And maybe something I want to add to that is every individual plays a really, really important role. I made a lot of experiences of the local ecosystem, being at that point Leon earlier was talking about, where growth is not anymore happen, even it's degrowth, and the motivation is lacking within the local ecosystem. And then just one person enters this ecosystem, a new person, and it might change everything in a positive way, because this person brings maybe the skill that was missing, or just the motivation that was missing. This person brings new ideas, new perspectives, and the whole ecosystem might shine bright after that again. That's something I really experienced a lot in my work, just because a new person came into the group. Everything was different, and brought new chances. And another thing is, you as an individual, I would like to ask you to question always the status quo, because that can thrive innovative and creative ideas, that from everyone inside and outside the ecosystem can benefit from. Me, myself, I try always to ask disruptive questions, even though I might be not the biggest fan of the idea itself, but just to, challenge your whole system and think of new ways of doing if you're if you are stuck somewhere. So each individual can have an impact, and I would like everyone to ask you to use that power for the whole local ecosystem to grow. maybe we have some maybe we have some more comments on that in the chat. Maybe the people within the discussion want to add something. What do you think is the role of the individual for a network or for a local ecosystem? Let's see if some are still there.
So I think the main questions were out there. So as promised, I would say, as a little service for you at the end of this kind of long discussion, not so long, but great discussion, I was gonna just round up some of the key points for you to take away. So it's really valuable to stay the last 5 minutes. So we just wanted to go through because it's such a big topic. And even when Afra, Arianna, and me talked about it before, and we felt there's so many key points. So I'm just going to try to summarize a little bit what you can take away from this if you go into the rest of the summit and the Sunday. So Afra started with a great introduction. That was amazing. And we talked about 4 points. What are ecosystems? What works? What doesn't work? And what's really the role of the individual? So what are ecosystems? So I think we really agreed that it's always super core to have a very, very clear purpose, that around that purpose, there are the right stakeholders and the right activities in place to really kind of facilitate that kind of ecosystem. And Arianna made this really important point about the visibility, because oftentimes people work on the same purpose, but they don't even see each other. So that was one of the key things about an ecosystem, creating that internal visibility to each other. And Afra again really, really stressed the point of really always come back to the purpose and remind people in an ecosystem about this purpose. So purpose, curate the right stakeholders, bring in great activities to bring them together and make them, see each other. I think are key points about what works. And then we were thinking about what really doesn't work, or where challenges arise. I think challenges often arise in this balance between inclusivity and curation of stakeholders, letting everyone in, or also sometimes having to say no to some people when they're not creating or when they're not in the right mindset, and really endangering an ecosystem are things that you really have to look for, because otherwise that really won't work. Really understanding who is in the ecosystem, what's happening there, to be actually inclusive about the right people and organizations, and making a real effort to be inclusive. And that can mean very different things in different topical areas and ecosystems, but really thinking about who's already out there, who should be involved, and always keeping an open ear to additional suggestions of who else should be involved to always remain inclusive also. And then Afra really also stressed, what doesn't work is an ecosystem where you don't actually understand the value that it creates. So making that value tangible, measurable, visible is really important. So everyone in the ecosystem actually, grows their understanding of the value that's created and the understanding of what's happening there. There was a question around great tools, and I think we've heard about some that you also find in the chat, like the Kumo app to visualize, like Slack to constantly exchange, and other communication apps, and really that importance to combine offline and online formats with each other to create that constant community that is at the core of an ecosystem. And then ultimately, that's not a tool, but it's, I would say, really important, as Arianna and Afra really stressed, and I can only triple down on that. Community managers / ecosystem managers that are kind of network animals and take pride and joy in knowing everyone, connecting the dots, and really living up to that expectation of being that living social network to connect everyone was also a key thing when it's about tools in the widest sense. And then thirdly, again, the question of finding out about the question of competition, what doesn't work. Oftentimes there was this kind of thought about, like, is competition a problem? Where are we with that? Is that really something that can endanger an ecosystem? And I think our understanding was that it shouldn't. It can, but it shouldn't. And to not let it destroy an ecosystem, it requires like constant work, active collaboration, investing the work to let each other know what's happening, inviting each other into projects, collaborations. Again, this kind of pay forward mentality, this give mentality that also applies to to applying for funding, building partnerships. So always keeping that giving, that paying forward mentality at the core, and also again constantly aligning values in the ecosystem and staying on the same page. I think that's something that we can really give to you. And then ultimately, what does that mean for the individual? And I'm trying to get it real short. Again, it's the pay forward mentality. It's take responsibility and leadership, be a multiplier, talk about what's happening in the ecosystem, and stay constantly engaged, because everyone's of key importance. As Afra stressed, one person can make 100% difference to change the dynamic and to change the success of an ecosystem. So that was a little bit of a roundup. I think we've kind of landed it. Really great talking. I'll start with a little thank you. It was really fun. And if you want to find out more about Impact Hub, a little bit, the Werbeblock, check out the chat. We've just opened last week the applications to become members in our new space. So one ecosystem that you can join. Check it out. It's in the chat, just a click away. Thanks everyone for listening. Afra, Arianna, thanks a lot. It was really fun.
Yeah, Leon, thank you for this sum up. Really great. And yeah, thank everyone for listening. Thank you, Arianna and Leon, for this nice Sunday talk to this midday. And yeah, also I will post the website of Send. Look it up, and yeah, have a nice Sunday.
Yeah, thank you from my side too. Thank you, Entrepreneurship Summit, for having us. I think myself, I learned so much from Leon and Afra today. It was very fruitful, very nice conversation. Thank you for your questions. And yeah, I also posted again guide. Have a look on that. I would love to get feedback on this. And yes, maybe you also want to contact us through Talk. We are going to be active still today on this platform, and see you very soon. Afra in Berlin, Leon maybe in München. We have a green fashion tour in München next Saturday. I'm going to be there. Maybe you want to take part. And yes, have a lovely Sunday.
Thank you. Bye.